His name was Trigger, or still is Trigger. He's still with us. I don't know why I say was. He got kicked. We turn all of our horses out into a herd every single night. We don't put any of them in their own little pens. They all get turned out together unless there's a reason that they can't be out there. So I would say 150 horses are all together on about 20 acres. And so sometimes they get rough, sometimes they play with each other, just gets a little rowdy, and he ended up getting kicked and broke his shoulder. And he had to get some hardware in his shoulder. So it was one of my friend's horses, and I asked her if I was able to patch him and use it as my own personal testimony. So I will give you guys some dates so we can all stay on track. And I first put patches on Trigger on May 16th. And he got a X39, an Eon, a glutathione, and an X49. So I went pretty heavy on his patching. And most people, if you haven't heard any of these testimonies before, I use all of the patches on horses. I don't just use Aculife. As you notice, I didn't even stick an Aculife on him. So he wore those for about a week, I would say, to 2 weeks. He was also, I would tell you, he was getting a Beamer red light on him. And after, I would say, the first week, he went back in. It was not good news. And the first week, we were not gaining any ground on Trigger. He went back in, and his infection on his incision was really bad. And so the doctor actually told us that his incision was healing too fast, and it wasn't allowing the infection a pathway out. It was just trapping it behind the skin and causing problems on his bone. So we had to open the pathway back up, and he told us that he didn't know what we were doing, but we needed to slow down. So we had to regroup after 2 weeks. So what we did was we stopped everything except glutathione. That's the only one he stayed on, was glutathione. And he was also on his medication for his infection, just regular antibiotics for his infection. And after he stayed like that, I think for a week or 2 weeks, after we figured that his body and his meds got control of the infection before we started heavily doing therapy again. And he went back on the X39, the Eon, the 49, and I actually took the glutathione off and we added an Alavida because we noticed that his skin was getting very thin, and the breed of horse that he was is an Arabian. They're known for thinner skin, and his bones, his muscles were atrophying a little bit. So I took out the glutathione, I added an Alavida for the skin effect, and he wore those until the packs were gone. And I think he re-upped 1 pack. So this was just 60 patches of all of these patches is what we're talking about for this healing. He wore them until I left town on June 13th. I had things to do, so I left town. I left them the patches. And I returned on July 24th, so I was gone for quite a while. Everybody was patching Trigger the whole time, X39, X49, Eon, and Alavida the whole time. And when I returned on July 24th, I could no longer see his incision. His skin had completely healed. I thought it was a different horse when I showed up. I was like, where's Trigger? They're like, that is Trigger. I'm like, there's no way. That's a different leg on that horse. And he was turned out in August. And it would be important, I skipped over this, but on May 16th, on the first day, they were told that he needed to be in a pen isolated for 5 months, which is crazy for a horse, but like that can't happen. And we turned him out in August, and that was only 3 months. So we shaved off 2 months from what the doctor even told us he needed to be isolated for, which was pretty cool. And I heard somebody asking about placement. His shoulder was the area that needed help. That's where he was kicked. So first rule of thumb is I always put it right on the area that needs it. So they were all generally around his shoulder, wherever we could stick them without getting in the way of something. He had some honey on it for the open wound and stuff. So, but just very close to the area, right around the shoulder for the person that was asking. And yeah, so he's now still healing a little bit. He's turned out, he's with a friend. He has a donkey friend, and Trigger is totally good. And I think we'll be able to start riding him. We had a time, do you remember how long until riding? How long until we can ride Trigger? Hopefully before the first of the year, we're going to get a saddle on him, which is awesome. So fingers crossed.
Wow.